very much indeed, Sarita. And finally, we have Matteo Bergamini, who is an alumnus and founder and director of Shout Out UK, and he's reasonably young. So it's eminently sensible he's talking about youth.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to Andrew and Brunel for giving this platform to people to speak about this topic. I would like to take a slightly different approach to talk about youth and young people, partly because I'm 24, I'm also a Brunel graduate, and I run a startup business. And I'm also, because of that, part of the demographic that overwhelmingly voted to remain, so I'm in a slightly peculiar position. But just to give a bit of context about what I do, I set up Shout Out UK, which is an organisation that I set up when I was in Brunel last year at the university back in 2014. And at the moment, we are a multi-award-winning youth news network that tries to get more young people involved in politics using journalism, film, events, and education. At the moment, we connect one of the largest networks of young people going from universities to high schools. 16 to 25-year-olds is our main demographic. And this year has been quite an exciting year for us. It was the first time we covered the political party conferences, from Labour to Conservatives, and as well as the Greens. Very, very different, as you can probably imagine. Some in a good way, some not so much. And we also did live coverage of the Brexit referendum when it came in. So we saw play-by-play of some of the areas and some of the different ways that some of the parts of Britain were voting. And naturally, at the aftermath of Brexit, I think most of us were surprised by the results. Obviously, of course, that's all water under the bridge. That's past. Whatever the reason that we voted out, it's happened. The people have spoken, and what remains to do now is to see how we can, as a nation, ensure that it provides the prospects for the next generation going forward. Often in politics, and this needs to be said, the needs of young people tend to be pushed on the back burner, with youth services often being the first under the axe when departments need to cut costs. The blame for such a move has always been nuanced. Some place a lack of participation among young people as a dominant cause, while others stress that politics simply fails to be modern enough or engaging enough to catch young people's attention. Brexit may not be the biggest event in our lifetime, but it is certainly one of the most important. And though our voices didn't necessarily scream the loudest in the referendum votes, we simply cannot afford to stay silent now that it's happened. The present generation of young, talented people finishing their education and entering the world of work will be the next most affected by a Britain without the European Union. For better or for worse, depends on essentially what happens. We at Shout Out UK, and this is a project I'd like to talk to yourselves about, between July and October, began collecting policy contributions and thoughts and comments from young people aged 15 to 25 across the UK, asking what they would want to see happen with Brexit. What would they say if they had an inroad into talking to David Davis and the negotiating team? What would they like to suggest? What would they want to see in a post-Brexit Britain? All contributions have been put together into a single policy booklet, which will be launched on the 17th of November at the Frontline Club in London. This booklet, The Next Generation's Manifesto, essentially, on Brexit, is a call to say that we as a generation care and would like to have a say in Brexit, since it is us who will be living with the consequences of what gets decided during negotiations. The topics were divided into several sections. Section 1 deals with submissions involving migration, business, and the economy, while Section 2 deals with submissions involving environment, education, and social justice. These subtopics were picked because they were the ones that we got the most responses on, with migration, employment, and social justice being the three most prevalent amongst young people. Migration, from what we read and from what the submissions came in, because young people often do not see British, French, German, they often just see people. That idea of nationalism hasn't transcended another generation. We were born with the European Union, let's not forget, and the right to move freely without visas, blocks, or hindrances. The free movement of people is a part of what we see as our society, and many young people would like to see that remain so. Employment is also another big topic, as you can imagine. Naturally, with such a large political shift comes economic consequence. A lot of submitters are worried at the effect this will have on the economy and suggest keeping access to the single market as a vital part of preventing a possible downshift in employment prospects. Social justice, primarily due to the Europeans' commitment to human rights, is a big issue also that came across when we requested submissions. Although the European Court of Human Rights is not binding, the next generation fears that us distancing ourselves from Europe would mean distancing ourselves also from this convention and set of principles. This was, ironically enough, pushed more and pushed stronger by the Conservative committal to remove the Human Rights Act and replacing it with their own, which did push up submissions in regards to social justice and human rights. Regardless, of course, how you voted, Brexit is happening, and now no one can truly predict all the possible outcomes of such a move. One thing, however, is certain. It is time we listen to the next generation and include it in this very vital conversation, which will likely influence the course of this nation for decades to come. Thank you for listening.